October 2, 2001, Zurich Airport, 3:40 in the afternoon, Swissair grounds its entire fleet, every single flight, canceled, 77 aircraft, frozen on the tarmac, 39,000 passengers stranded across the world. An airline that had flown for 71 years ran out of money to buy jet fuel. This was not some struggling startup. This was not a discount carrier flying on borrowed time. This was Swissair, the flying bank. For 7 decades, the most respected airline on earth. An airline so profitable, so impeccably managed, the industry called it the gold standard, literally. And then, in the span of 18 months, it was gone. A 2.9 billion Swiss franc black hole, where a national treasure used to be. How does a company like that collapse like this? This is the story of the flying bank and how it flew directly into the ground. Most airlines survive on a knife's edge. Margins are razor thin, fuel prices swing without warning. One bad summer, one recession, one oil shock can erase a decade of profit overnight. But Swissair was not most airlines. Founded in 1931, Swissair did everything right. Modern fleet, understated luxury, flawless management. Zurich became a global hub on Swissair's wings. The airline was so financially solid, so impossibly stable, that the industry gave it a nickname, the Flying Bank. Because if you wanted to know where to invest your capital, you didn't ask a Swiss banker, you asked Swissair. But in the 1990s, the world began to change. The airline industry consolidated. Giant alliances took shape. British Airways, Lufthansa, Air France were building empires. Swissair had to decide, join an existing alliance or construct its own. The board chose door number 2. They called it the Hunter strategy, designed by McKinsey consultants, championed by CEO Philippe Bruggesser. Bruggesser was not a cautious man. He saw a fragmented continent, dozens of struggling national carriers, each one bleeding cash, each one desperate for a savior. The plan was audacious in its simplicity: buy minority stakes, typically 20 to 30%, in ailing airlines from Brussels to Warsaw. Inject Swiss capital, Swiss expertise, Swiss discipline, turn them around one by one, build a Swiss-led empire to rival British Airways, rival Lufthansa, rival anyone. Over 4 years, Swissair went on a buying spree. Sabena of Belgium, Belgium's flag carrier, had been hemorrhaging money for a decade, 49.5%. OM of France, Air Littoral of France, 2 French airlines that couldn't make money in a good year. LTU of Germany, a charter carrier drowning in red ink. Air Europe of Italy, a financial catastrophe wearing the Italian tricolor. South African Airways, LOT Polish Airlines, and at least 8 other carriers across 3 continents. At its peak, the SAirGroup controlled nearly 20% of European aviation. On paper, it looked like an empire, but under the surface, it was a house of cards. The Hunter strategy had one fatal flaw. Swissair was not buying winners, it was buying losers. Sabena of Belgium, outdated fleet, astronomical labor costs, management in permanent chaos. Swissair took a 49.5% stake and a bottomless pit of debt. OM in France, bleeding cash. LTU in Germany, drowning. Air Europe in Italy, a disaster in red, white, and green. Swissair poured billions of francs into these carriers, but minority stakes meant minority control. They could not restructure, could not fire management, could not merge overlapping routes. All they could do was keep writing checks. By the year 2000, the stakes were losing nearly 800 million francs annually, and the board in Zurich had absolutely no exit plan. And then on the 2nd of September, 1998, disaster struck from a different direction entirely. Swissair Flight 111 departed New York's JFK Airport at 8:18 p.m. Destination, Geneva. 215 passengers, 14 crew. The MD-11 was among the most technologically advanced aircraft in the Swissair fleet. About 1 hour into the flight over the North Atlantic, the crew detected an unusual odor. Smoke. Something was burning. Behind the cockpit panels, the flight crew followed protocol, declared an emergency, began diverting toward Halifax, Nova Scotia. At 10:31 p.m. local time, the aircraft vanished from radar. It had plunged into the Atlantic Ocean, 6 miles off the coast of Nova Scotia. There were no survivors. All 229 souls on board were lost. The darkest day in Swissair's 70-year history. The official investigation would take 4 years. The cause was finally traced to faulty wiring in the entertainment system. A short circuit had ignited flammable insulation above the cockpit. A fire that began the size of a fist spread until it consumed the entire aircraft. Flight 111 was not Swissair's fault in the traditional corporate sense, but the financial cost was staggering. Lawsuits, settlements, reputational devastation, and all of it landed at the worst possible moment. The Hunter strategy was already hemorrhaging billions. Now Flight 111 was consuming something even more valuable: the public's trust. By early 2001, the math had become undeniable, and it was horrifying. In April, Swissair released its annual report. The bottom line, a loss of 2.89 billion Swiss francs, 1.8 billion United States dollars, gone. For a company that had reported a profit every year since 1931, this was the first loss in 7 decades, and it was not a small loss. It was catastrophic. The stock price collapsed, 97% from its peak. Employees who had invested their entire life savings in Swissair stock watched it evaporate. This was Switzerland. Swissair was forever, until it was not. CEO Brugesser, the architect of the Hunter strategy, was forced out. The board brought in Mario Corti, a former Nestlé executive, a man with precisely 0 hours of airline experience. Corti arrived to find a company hemorrhaging 4 million francs every single day. He later told investigators the situation was unimaginably worse than anything the public knew. The flying bank had been flying on empty for years. And then the world changed forever. September 11, 2001, the terrorist attacks on the United States brought global aviation to a standstill. Passenger numbers collapsed overnight. Airlines around the world grounded planes and laid off tens of thousands. For an already dying Swissair, it was the death blow. The company needed an emergency injection of cash to keep aircraft in the sky. The board turned to the pillars of Swiss finance: UBS, Credit Suisse, the 2 banks that had financed Swiss industry for over a century. And the banks looked at the books, and they said no. October 2nd, 2001, Swissair ran out of money, literally ran out. Could not pay for jet fuel, could not pay landing fees at airports. Airport authorities across Europe began refusing to service Swissair planes. Credit card companies stopped processing tickets. The airline had no choice left. At 3:40 p.m. Zurich time, Swissair grounded its entire fleet, 77 aircraft, every single flight, canceled. 39,000 passengers stranded at airports across the globe. Some were at the gate, boarding passes in hand. Others were already on board, waiting for pushback. Thousands of people spent the night on cold terminal floors. In an airline whose credit cards had stopped working, whose planes had stopped flying, whose century of prestige had evaporated in a single afternoon, the Swiss government scrambled. An emergency session, a bridging loan, 450 million Swiss francs, a desperate last-ditch attempt to get planes back in the air. But by then, the damage was irreversible. The brand was dead. The trust was gone. The flying bank had bounced its final check. Switzerland refused to let its aviation identity die completely. Crossair, Swissair's small, consistently profitable regional subsidiary, was chosen as the foundation. It was stripped of its old identity, rebranded as Swiss International Airlines. Swiss, built from the ashes of the flying bank. Swiss absorbed what remained of the roots, the fleet, the staff. But the scars never fully healed. Switzerland, a nation that defines itself by competence, precision, and never making mistakes, had watched its most trusted institution collapse like a third-world carrier. SAirGroup declared bankruptcy in 2002. 3,800 people lost their jobs. The executives faced criminal investigations, years of legal proceedings, but in the end, no one went to prison. The shareholders, the employees, the taxpayers of Switzerland absorbed the loss. Swissair did not fail because of one bad decision. It failed because of a corporate culture that could not admit a mistake. The Hunter strategy was visibly failing by 1998. But nobody in the Zurich headquarters was willing to say the words out loud. Nobody wanted to be the person who told the flying bank that the fuel tanks were dry. In the end, Swissair was destroyed by the very thing that had made it great: arrogance, the unshakable belief that Swiss precision, Swiss capital, and Swiss management could fix anything, even airlines that had been broken for decades, even a strategy that defied basic arithmetic, even a business burning through millions of francs every single day. This is not simply the story of a failed airline. It is the story of what happens when a reputation for infallibility becomes an inability to admit failure. The flying bank did not crash because it ran out of money. It crashed because it ran out of humility.